Phil Wilson, that company we saw there was actually in your constituency. You've actually been surveying businesses in Sedgefield about their attitudes towards the EU. What did you discover?
What we discovered is that 86% of companies still want to stay in the EU. 75% want reform, which is fine, but we need to stay in to change it. And 52% of the companies as well also thought that if we do come out of the EU, that would affect their investment strategies for the future. I'm not saying that any of these companies are going to close. I'm not going to frighten people, but what I am going to say, if it is going to have an impact on investment, it will have an impact on economic and job growth in the area, and that's the one thing that I'm really fearful of and why we shouldn't leave the EU.
Phillip Broughton, I accept this is one survey, but there's been plenty of others. And Jeremy, would you accept that business, for the most part, a majority of business does not agree with you and believes that actually it's worth staying in the European Union?
I think the big businesses and the corporatists want to actually stay in the European Union because that actually stops small businesses. They don't want competition. This is the political class that actually want to stay in the European Union. What this referendum is about getting our sovereignty back as an independent nation where we can make our own laws in our own parliament. It's about being able to trade with the rest of the world. You know, the EU equates to 18% of global GDP. We're saying in UKIP, let's get out of the EU and get into the rest of the world, 82% of the world.
But you
and it's
you
about
really
controlling
think small
our borders.
businesses will be able to compete with the big businesses just if we leave the European Union? It's as simple as
Well, there's huge amounts of regulations. There's something like 3,600 new EU regulations that have come in since 2010 alone. And of course, the other issue, that, as I was saying, is it is about controlling our borders and controlling about our immigration, because we can't control our immigration policy while we're in the EU. Why is that? Because you have free movement of people across the European Union. 485 million people can go wherever they want, thanks to the free movement of people.
OK, I don't want to debate immigration, but you've made your point. Phil Wilson, actually, in the detail of this survey, as you said, three-quarters of businesses actually want reform of the European Union. So they're not happy with it as it is. There is a distinct possibility they may get to the end of this process, see very little change, and actually have a change of heart themselves about whether they want to stay in the EU. Well,
like I said, I mean, you've got the big corporates like Philip was on about, but you've got smaller companies as well, such as Cromac, my constituency, that employs about 60 people. Started off with only 3 people, but with the aid of the EU, it's now a PLC exporting to the rest of Europe.
But these companies want change, and if they get to the referendum, which is by the end of 2017, they don't see significant change, they might actually question this, mightn't they? They might say, well, I'd be in favour if we got rid of some of this red tape, but it doesn't seem we can.
Never get rid of it.
86% of the companies surveyed wanted to stay in. They want reform. They know fundamentally it's in their best interest to stay a part of a market which has 500 million consumers. And I think you'll find, Philip, that a lot of other surveys are saying the same thing. And the other thing what you've got to remember about UKIP as well, I mean, even Douglas Carswell, who was the only UKIP MP in Westminster, isn't supporting your campaign to come out.
Wait, there's 2 campaigns to come out of the European Union. Douglas Carswell's on one, Nigel Farage's on the other. They both want to come out of the European Union.
Let's not have that debate. Michael Bates, these businesses want change, so does the Prime Minister, apparently. But realistically, what's he going to be able to secure for them?
Well, I think Phil Wilson's survey is pretty accurate. I think where most people are, which is to say, listen, we recognise the big market. The North East is one of its great strengths. It's one of the only regions that exports more than it actually imports.
But what is the Prime Minister in this negotiation going to get back?
What he's actually saying is, there is the one on the job movement to ensure that people who come here are actually looking for jobs rather than for benefits. So there is a question on the benefit tourism. The other one is to say that we want an end to this project, which is called an ever closer union, and we want to emphasise the economic trade and particularly reaching out to other parts of the world that are growing faster than our own. And then we want to put that to the people.
Shift a lot of the red tape that these businesses, I suspect, are concerned about.
Well, we're also saying that we want a greater say for national parliaments and a lesser role for the centre, for the Commission. And so I think that these are important elements. And ultimately, listen, the one thing that we're saying here is that nobody's going to impose this on anyone. There is going to be a debate for the first time. I am 54 years old. Nobody's ever asked me if I actually want to be part of the European Union. People are going to have that chance, but after there's been a good renegotiation.
Phillip Broughton, here's your chance. What's the killer argument you're going to use to say we need to leave the EU when we come to this referendum?
Well, we're currently paying £55 million every day to be part of this club. It controls our borders, it controls our laws, it makes 75% of our legislation. You know, we can't even make our own trade deals while we're in this thing. You know, if we look at Britain, it's the 5th largest economy in the world. You're telling me outside the European Union we couldn't go and make trade deals with everyone? You look at Iceland, a country with a population the size of Newcastle, has a free trade agreement with China. We don't while we're in the European Union.
You haven't got very long, but give us the argument that you would make to stay.
I have yet to come across anybody who wants us to come out of Europe. There's no unanimity about what they offer if we do come out. What I'm concerned about is the risk of coming out, what the effect it's going to have on jobs, the effects that it's going to have on industry, and the effects that it's going to have.
We'll have to leave it there. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again before.